The day I died, the Mediterranean was the color of a bruise. I remember the way the sunset bled across the water, orange and purple and black, as our yacht cut through the waves off the coast of Santorini. I remember the champagne flute slipping from my fingers, the glass shattering against the deck like a scream. I remember Julian's hands on my shoulders, gentle at first, then firm, then pushing. I remember the railing against my back, the cold shock of the wind, the endless drop toward the sea. And I remember his voice, calm and measured, as I fell. "I'm sorry, Elena, but Sabine is pregnant, and you're worth more dead than alive." The water hit me like concrete. I sank into the darkness, my lungs filling with salt and silence, and the last thing I saw was Julian's silhouette against the fading sky, his hand raised in a wave that was also a farewell. I had been married for 11 days, since I had walked down an aisle in a cathedral of white roses, my father's arm linked through mine, my heart full of hope. 11 days since I had pledged my life to a man who had been planning my death since the moment we met. The police ruled it an accident. Newlywed bride drowns on honeymoon cruise, the headlines read. Tragic accident claims life of heiress Elena Vance. My body was never found. The currents were too strong, the search team said. She was swept out to sea. There will be no recovery. Julian Ashford collected my life insurance policy, $20 million, taken out 6 weeks before our wedding. He sold my shares in Vance Pharmaceuticals to a competitor for a fraction of their value. He married Sabine Moreau, my former assistant, in a quiet ceremony 6 months after my death, and they welcomed a son 7 months after that. The math was not lost on anyone who cared to do it, but no one cared to do it. Julian was charming. Julian was grieving. Julian was a widower who had found love again in the arms of his late wife's closest friend. IT was tragic. IT was romantic. IT was a lie. I survived. A fishing boat pulled me from the water 3 miles off the coast of Crete. My body broken. My memory fractured. My identity a blank slate. I spent 2 years in a hospital in Athens, piecing myself back together. I spent another 2 years building a new identity, a Greek woman named Helena Andreidis, a former accountant who had lost her family in a car accident and was starting over. And I spent the 5th year waiting, watching, planning. Julian Ashford was getting married again. Not to Sabine. Sabine had left him 2 years ago, taking their son, and a generous settlement after she discovered he had been embezzling from the company he had stolen from me. No, Julian was marrying again, that a new bride, that a new fortune, that a new life. He had proposed to a tech heiress named Margaret Sterling, the daughter of the billionaire founder of Sterling Global, and their wedding was going to be the social event of the season. He had chosen the same cathedral where we were married, the same white roses, the same string quartet. He had even sent out invitations with the same gold lettering, as if he were trying to recreate the perfect wedding, the perfect crime, the perfect victim. He didn't know that his first victim was still alive. He didn't know that she had spent 5 years learning everything about him, his finances, his crimes, his weaknesses. He didn't know that she was coming to his wedding. And he didn't know that she was about to introduce herself. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 o'clock on a Saturday in June. The cathedral was packed with 600 guests, senators, CEOs, socialites, the entire upper crust of Manhattan society. Julian stood at the altar in his Brioni tuxedo, his silver hair gleaming, his smile the same smile he had worn when he pushed me into the sea beside him. His bride-to-be was a vision in ivory silk. The priest began the ceremony. The guests settled into their seats. The string quartet played something soft and forgettable. And then, just as the priest asked if anyone had any objections, the cathedral doors burst open. I walked down the aisle. Not as Helena Andreidis, not as a stranger as Elena Vance, the woman who was supposed to be dead, the woman whose body was supposed to be at the bottom of the Mediterranean, the woman who had been erased from the world by the man standing at the altar. I wore a dress of midnight blue, not white, never white again, and my mother's pearls at my throat, and my hair was different. My face was older, but my eyes were the same. And when Julian saw them, the color drained from his face so fast I thought he might collapse. "Hello, Julian," I said, my voice carrying across the silent cathedral. "Did you miss me?" The guests erupted, phones lifted, cameras flashed. The priest dropped his Bible. The bride, poor, innocent Margaret, stared at me with dawning horror, her perfect wedding crumbling around her. Julian staggered backward, his hand clutching the altar for support, his face a mask of terror and disbelief. "You're dead," he whispered. "You're dead. You died. The currents, the sea, they said you were swept away. They said my body was never found. There's a difference." I walked closer, my heels clicking against the marble floor. "You should have made sure I was dead, Julian. You should have put a bullet in my head instead of pushing me off a boat. But you were always sloppy. You were sloppy with insurance policy, too. Did you really think I would notice? $20 million, taken out 6 weeks before our wedding. You planned it from the beginning, didn't you? The courtship, the marriage, the honeymoon. You never loved me. You just wanted me dead." The cathedral was utterly silent. 600 people held their breath. Julian's face had gone from white to gray, his composure shattered, his perfect life crumbling around him. "She's lying," he shouted, his voice cracking. "This woman is an imposter, a fraud. My wife died 5 years ago. I buried her." "You buried an empty coffin. You stood at my grave and wept for the cameras while my mother sobbed beside you. And then you went home and celebrated with Sabine. I know everything, Julian. I know about the embezzlement and I know about the insurance fraud. I know about the mistress you're currently hiding from your new bride, the one you promised to marry after you drained Margaret's trust fund the way you drained mine. I've spent 5 years documenting every crime you've ever committed, and tonight the FBI is waiting outside." The cathedral doors opened again. Federal agents streamed in, led by a woman in a dark suit who held up her badge. "Julian Ashford, you are under arrest for attempted murder, insurance fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent." Julian lunged toward me, but 2 agents intercepted him before he had taken 3 steps. "Elena, please. I loved you. In the beginning, I really loved you." "No, Julian, you loved my money, you loved my name, you loved the idea of being the grieving widower who overcame tragedy, but you never loved me." I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a whisper. "And now you're going to spend the rest of your life in a prison cell, thinking about the woman who came back from the dead to destroy you." They dragged him away, still shouting my name, his perfect tuxedo rumpled, his perfect life in ruins. The bride, Margaret Sterling, stood frozen at the altar, her bouquet of white roses trembling in her hands. I turned to her, and for the first time, I felt something other than rage. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "You didn't know. He fooled you the way he fooled me. But you deserve better than a man who tried to kill his first wife. I hope you find it." She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and one of her bridesmaids led her away. The cathedral slowly emptied, guests filing out in stunned silence, their phones still recording, their mouths still agape. I stood alone at the altar where I had once pledged my life to a murder, and I felt, for the first time in 5 years, at peace. Third-party objective commentary. From a narrative standpoint, what makes this scene so devastatingly effective is the precision of the protagonist's timing. Elena Vance doesn't disrupt the wedding during the vows or the reception. She waits for the exact moment of maximum vulnerability, the question of objections, a ritual designed to reveal hidden truths. It's a masterstroke of dramatic irony. The same cathedral, the same roses, the same string quartet. Julian Ashford has unconsciously replicated his first wedding because he views women as interchangeable props in his performance of success. His fatal flaw isn't greed or ambition. It's his inability to imagine that a woman he discarded might have survived him. Elena's dialogue is remarkable for its restraint. She doesn't scream or weep or beg for justice. She delivers facts with the cold precision of a prosecutor reading an indictment, which is, in essence, exactly what she has become. The line, "You should have made sure I was dead," is particularly chilling because it functions as both a confession of her own survival and an indictment of his incompetence. She has not come to accuse him. She has come to educate him on the consequences of his sloppiness. The appearance of the FBI, a deus ex machina that, remarkably, doesn't feel like one, underscores the years of invisible labor Elena has performed. This moment of public reckoning is the tip of an iceberg. Beneath it lies a foundation of forensic accounting, witness interviews, and legal strategy. The satisfaction of the scene comes not from the humiliation of the villain, satisfying as that is, but from the revelation that the victim he thought he erased has been quietly building the architecture of his destruction for half a decade. Julian's plea, "In the beginning, I really loved you," is the quintessential abuser's refrain. Even in this final moment, he cannot admit the truth. That love, for him, was always a weapon. Elena's reply, "You loved my money, you loved my name, you loved the idea of being the grieving widower," dismantles his self-mythology with surgical precision. She is not merely accusing him, she is revealing the psychology of a predator who sees other people as resources. The coda with Margaret Sterling is a grace note that elevates the entire scene. Elena, who could have been consumed by bitterness, instead extends compassion to the woman who is about to become her replacement. This moment signals that the heroine's victory is not merely about revenge, it is about reclaiming her humanity from a man who tried to strip her of it. The trial of Julian Ashford was the most sensational case the Manhattan District Attorney's Office had prosecuted in decades. The evidence I had gathered, bank records, wire transfers, the testimony of the fisherman who pulled me from the water, the confession of the insurance agent Julian bribed, was overwhelming. He was convicted of attempted murder, insurance fraud, and embezzlement. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Sabine Moreau, who had known about the murder plot and had helped Julian cover it up, was charged as an accessory. She accepted a plea deal and was sentenced to 10 years. Her son, Julian's son, was placed in the care of her parents. Margaret Sterling sent me a letter 3 months after the trial. She thanked me for saving her from a marriage that would have destroyed her. She wrote that she had started a foundation to support women escaping abusive relationships, and she asked if I would serve on the board that I accepted. I rebuilt my life that IT took years. I reclaimed control of Vance Pharmaceuticals, the company my grandmother had founded, and I used its resources to fund research into the forensic accounting techniques that had brought Julian to justice. I testified before Congress about the need for stronger protections against insurance fraud and domestic violence, and I wrote a memoir that spent 52 weeks on the bestseller list. And I never, not once, visited Julian in prison. 15 years after I walked down that aisle in the Cathedral of White Roses, I stand on the rooftop of Vance Tower, looking out at the city. Somewhere below me, in a federal penitentiary, the man who tried to kill me is spending the rest of his life in a cage. Somewhere, his accomplices are living with the consequences of their choices. And I am alive, that I am free, that I am whole. The bride who was supposed to drown became the woman who rose from the sea. And she is just getting started.